Welcome to the True Connections Recovery Podcast. My name is Brigham Elton. I am a pornography and sexual addiction counselor. The purpose of this podcast is to help others overcome the appeal of pornography, sexual abuse, and sexual fear by chasing healthy sexuality. I'm so grateful that you've chosen to be here with us today and join us in the chase of a healthy sexual mindset and actions. Chapter 3, Talking about the Media. I really enjoy these first sections where it just tries to help us to assess what influence has the media had on us, and then also what are our values looking forward. I think, again, like this suggests looking at them privately and then talking about them with your partner. I think these can really help you and your partner to get on the same page and to establish some level of boundaries. There's a couple questions here that I really enjoy. In this exploring media monitoring, at what age do you think your child should be able to make her own decisions about which shows to watch or which music to listen to? I just love this idea, right? Like, our goal isn't to just keep our kids safe from media or sheltered from media. Like, our goal is to help them to gain media and screen and tech skills, and to leave home with that self-confidence. And I think making that decisions of what they're going to watch or what music they're going to listen to is a beginning stage of that. And I think that's important that it's happening in the home. The next one that I really like is this: do you think it's appropriate to monitor your child's cell phone usage, including picture and text messaging? Is this an invasion of privacy or a necessary evil in today's world? I think talking about that matters. Like, I've seen a lot of different values across families where some people feel like it's an invasion of privacy. Some people feel like, it's a parent's phone. They're the one who pays for it. They get to keep looking at how the child is using it. But I think that conversation really does matter as a parent, right? To make sure that you're on that same page. My favorite section is here on page 81, talking about exploring media impact and just talking about okay, this is our culture. How has it affected you? We have this natural desire to be part of our culture, right? Like, if you're a wildebeest and you're hanging out all by yourself, well, then you're going to get eaten by a lion, And so we have this natural subconscious desire to fit in to the culture around us. Now, as our culture around us becomes more and more influenced on our media, and we start to think that this is the normality, media really does have a huge impact on the way that we subconsciously see the world. And so as you go through this, I think it's important to go not only consciously, but subconsciously, how is the media affecting your idea of normal? As you read through some of these media impact questions, you can tell that this book was published in the earlier 2000s, but it's very easy to apply to the media that we are currently exposed to. I think as it talks about okay, what about body image, right? And as this universal body image gets set according to our media, how does that affect you? How does that affect the way that you think about yourself? How does that affect your self-comparisons versus other people? Then the same thing about sex and romantic relationships. How does this establish your idea of normal, right? Because as your idea of normal gets set, then constantly we are just chasing that ideal. The next section in this talking about the media is this: your child's media exposure. It talks a lot about the prevalence of the media and how it is just constantly available for our children and how it is constantly influencing our kids. There's this line that's in that page 82 that I'd like to talk about. It says, "Too much media exposure can fast forward your child's learning curve for topics that he may not be ready to and able to fully process." This is what we see, especially as we see the average age of pornography exposure just drop and drop and drop. Individuals' brains aren't ready for this. Like, I remember being like an 8-year-old and like coming home and apologizing to all my toys because I just saw the movie Toy Story. Yet here are these kids like being exposed to pornography at that age, and their brain is so concrete that it thinks that is absolutely real. It's amazing to me, no matter how long it's been, how many people can remember their first exposure to pornography, because it has such a deep influence on their perception of what sex is, right? For the very first time you've heard about sex, your body's thinking about sex and is even feeling out sexual situations, and now you experience it for the first time, your brain goes, okay, this is this thing that I've been looking for. It has such a sway on us, especially before our brain is ready to be exposed. Now, this is a hard balance if you have multiple kids in the home, but it is awesome to delay exposure to adult-themed things. Awesome. Now, delaying it forever is not very helpful, but if you can delay that to like 13, 14 years old, like a child's brain is more prepared to see the long term and to evaluate whatever they see based on their own value system. Again, I want to read this line. Too much media exposure can fast forward your child's learning curve for topics that he may not be able to fully process. We just are expediting your child's exposure to adult themes. And it's even more going to influence them believing that they're adult, right? And then starting to consider these ideas that maybe aren't quite ready at a child's brain at that stage. I love this idea of creating a media plan. Now, of course, like our individual media plan is way more extensive than what this is talking about here, but it is so awesome to have those expectations set. And it actually will really help our child to understand the penalties and will take away some of the like emotion of the moment. Establishing expectations like when our child gets a cell phone for the first time or can for the very first time have a social media or how often that social media is going to be checked. One thing that I suggest that's a little separate from this is keep sending the message that this is my phone that you are using. I am not giving you a phone. I am allowing you to use one of my phones that I have access to and you get to use. Right, and establishing that mindset will really make it easier for boundaries to be established in your home. Limiting your child's media exposure. I love a couple of lines here. We're going to start here. Begin by placing all televisions and computers in common areas, not in bedrooms. Awesome. Right? Like, it is so dangerous for us to have screen exposure, especially late into the night in the bedroom. It's an easy way to monitor if it's in a public space, and it can always be walked through. I remember our like family room growing up didn't have a door, and that's where we would watch movies, and like anyone who walked by could see what you were watching and what you were doing. And I think that is very, very helpful and an easy way to just control the environment instead of trying to control all behaviors. Then finally it says here, thus it is a good idea to make TV and movies a treat rather than a right. This kind of goes back to our help your child understand that it's my phone that you were using, not your phone, right? And it is a treat that they get to use those things, right? We like to make it in our home these like kind of big deals when we set up our TV and have movie nights, right? And it becomes this like awesome thing that we do sometimes instead of this like you get 2 hours of TV time every day. And I feel like a kid like feels like they own that. It's like, hey, I didn't get my TV time. I can't do whatever our family activity is. Now, we want media to be this like awesome thing that we get to do, not this, okay, you own this time or you have this right to access media. The next section is entitled the Media and Body Image. I want to start here just by reading this first section. The media can boost or damage self-esteem, particularly for children who are engrossed in discovering their identity. For adolescents, defining identity is as much a process of social discovery as it is a process of self-discovery. In order to know who they are, children first want to know who everyone else is. A large part of this discovery process requires that children compare their own identities with those that they see reflected on television and in movies, which can sometimes lead to feelings of low self-worth and poor body image. There are a lot of times of self-discovery where a child is discovering like who they are, right? From when your child is like a toddler and they're realizing they're separate from the world, to when they're a teenager and they're trying to decide what their values are. And so in this process of discovering their identity, they are going to be comparing themselves with the people they see on TV. So when you think about what your child is watching on TV or social media, or however they're accessing, YouTube is a common one, like they are comparing themselves with that person. Am I funny like that person is? Am I fit like that person is? Am I hot like that person is? Am I sexual like that person is? And that comparison is constantly happening. Again, at first is like, who are these people? And then it's, how do I measure up in comparison to them? As a parent, for me, it's important to be aware of that, right? And look for when my child is comparing themselves with other people, maybe even friends, which they also do. What are those influences? And how can I, as a parent, help those influences to turn out positive and to help my child believe that I have confidence in them, and to give them an opportunity to be conscious of the media and the messages that they're receiving. In this little orange box on page 85, it talks about this point. It says, also make it a point to praise real and healthy body types, such as strong female athletes. Teach your child that bodies come in all different shapes and sizes, and that each one is special, attractive, and most importantly, unique. Celebrate real, natural beauty and make confidence the ultimate goal, both in your own life and in your child's life. I think this is an awesome point, right? And like, there's a lot of opportunity that we have to praise individuals, right? And even praise our own bodies, right? And as we view our own bodies, so will our child typically view theirs. I also want to hit one of these conversation starters. Isn't it fun to watch the women's tennis finals? The athletes are so strong and well-toned, right? And I think that these really help, right, to like celebrate the body. Now, athletics is an easier lane to be able to celebrate the bodies, and the nice thing about athletics is it really does celebrate a lot of different body types. But I think that's important outside of that as well, right? To talk about like the music that is being created, right? Like the piano, and like how beautiful and amazing it is that they're doing what they're doing with their fingers, right? Or like someone's voice, right, can be part of their body. And I think looking at things like that can really help your child to see their body for more than just its sexual appeal. In this next section, entitled Sex in Television and Film, she goes over all the television ratings and like what is allowed according to each rating, right? It starts with TVY, which is all children. Content is appropriate for all children, and all themes and elements are designed specifically for young audience, including ages 2 to 6, right? This can have some like cartoon violence, but it's not super consistency, right? Like the Roadrunner and all those old shows. Then it's TVY7. These programs are designed for children ages 7 and older, and may require the developmental skills needed to distinguish between make-believe and reality, which before 7 kids really struggle with. Themes and elements may include mild fantasy or comedic violence, so may frighten to be unsuitable for younger children, right? Then there's TVY7FV. This is older children with fantasy violence, right? Programs that contain more intense or combative fantasy violence are given this label. It indicates that a program may contain all of the following characteristics. Violence is a prevalent feature of the program, fighting presented in an exciting or thrilling way, villains and superheroes valued for their combat abilities, violent acts glorified, and violence depicted as an acceptable or effective solution to a problem. Fantasy violence may be part of an animated cartoon, a live-action show, or a program that combines both animation and live action, right? And I think that this is an important thing for us to understand, right? That like these are aimed at kids 7 and above, right? Like, as someone who has young kids, like, I see them constantly dressed up in, like, Marvel things, right? And I just think it's important for us to remember, like, this is typically aimed at someone who is 7 or up, right? And knowing that, according to our child's ability to, like, comprehend what's going on, I think we can establish a healthy standard for them, and then maybe not expect to have this huge dialogue if we choose to let them participate in it. Then it goes over the typical, like, adult sections, right? TVG, it's built for general audience. It can really be for about anyone. There's TVPG, which is saying that, like, there are some sexual situations, infrequent coarse language, or some suggestive dialogue, right? TV 14, right? Most TV 14s contain sex, violent, or adult language. Not all these shows are labeled with the content descriptors. TV 14 programs with the highest level of sex or adult language are usually labeled with the content ratings. A TV 14 rating without content labels may indicate a program with a mature theme. It's also a good idea to monitor these programs as much as possible. And then finally, there's like the TVMA, which is mature audience only. In this book, it talks about that very few shows are labeled this, but that is really not true as much as it used to be, especially with like streaming services where they give a wide array of for adults or for children, right? Like on Netflix, you can totally find a bunch of TVMA, or on HBO or whatever. Like, those totally exist, and it's not something that's just rare anymore. Like, there is mature content constantly available because of the ability to stream, right? It's not even just like on late at night. It's now something that's available whenever because of our streaming systems. In the next section, it talks about monitoring content. Now, there are a lot of like programs and things like that, but I love this line that she says: one of the best ways to do this is to sit down with your child and watch some of her favorite television programs. Now, I understand that most kids are mainly watching YouTube or something like that, but to be there and to participate with them is so powerful, right? And to do your best to enjoy it. Now, I understand that you're not probably inclined to this like teenage media and the teenage humor, but trying to participate on that level can really help your kid to not only like understand that your engagement in their world, but also to help them feel like, okay, my parents care about what I care about, and is a very easy way, again, to monitor what your child is watching. We believe in AirPlay, where we will put up and laugh together at individuals' social media feeds or even someone's like YouTube things, right? But let's enjoy that together and use a screen to connect instead of to isolate. And it helps me as a parent to know what's going on in my child's world, right? Like, as I watch their TikTok or their social media, I'm like, okay, like, this is what my child is into, especially with internet cookies showing us specifically what our child continues to watch. We do this consistently in our home. We call them cookie shares, where we will go and we put up our phones, and then we will watch each other's medias, right? I think this is important for me to watch my wife's, to see all the DIY projects that she's hoping that I do soon, or for me to show my wife what I think is funny, or the sports highlights that I've been watching, and we enjoy those things together. Now, when my kids have access to social media, YouTube, and their phones, like, this is going to be part of that, is that, like, we as a family experience these things together, and it's whatever you choose to bring in our home with your screen is public, not private. As we look at sex and music, I'd like to read this line that's at the top of page 90. As parents, it's a good idea to give your child enough distance to establish her own interests and tastes. At the same time, stay attuned to the messages of the lyrics your child listens to, and also if and how they impact her behavior and self-image. I think this is a great place for a child to start to develop some level of choice and making their own decisions of what they choose to listen to. Yet, I think this is an awesome teaching moment. I remember this mother who would randomly ask kids to check their lyrics and just read them to them. And she set a standard before that, like, this doesn't mean you don't ever get to listen to this song again, I just want you to be conscious of what you're listening to. Again, her goal wasn't to control and to take away choice, but it was to help her kid to realize what these individual songs said. Now, I do this sometimes with my clients when we do a tech progression, and just randomly I'll have them be sliding through their history or whatever, and I'll be like, okay, put your finger down, pick on that song, just random, and let's just look at the lyrics. And in this moment, an individual is conscious about what their music influence is, and will admit that, like, okay, you maybe don't listen to the lyrics, but the subconscious messages are still getting through. And so let's own those, and let's look at what is happening. And I think as we are more and more conscious about those messages, they affect us less and less. As we hit this sex and technology portion of the book, you can tell that it's a little bit dated. But there is some principles here that I think are useful for us to look at. This first one is on page 92 underneath guarding against risk. Your child can more easily come to you if questionable contact is made, if you have started the initial conversation. Children rarely are going to come to you at the first, right? You can say all the time, like, I just want you to talk to me and all those kind of things, but like, you're going to have to ask. Children do a great job of separating that in their mind and just putting it away. And so you're going to need to bring those things up. Otherwise, I really doubt that your child will share some of these things with you. And so it's important that you consistently talk about their online interactions, right? Just like we ask our kid about school, it's important we ask about, hey, what did you and your friends talk about while playing Minecraft today? Or like, who have you been following on social media, and participate in those realms. It's important, again, that you talk about those things consistently, because it's rare that a child will be the initiator of that conversation. The next point I like is on page 94. It talks about monitoring cell phones. I think a lot of times parents are asking, like, how can I check what's going on? And yeah, you can check your kid's phone and those kind of things, but one thing that's awesome is your bill will actually tell you what numbers they're texting and how often. Right, because on a phone, sadly, like, messages can be deleted, but on your bill, that is a safe place for you to be able to check, okay, what's going on on my kid's phone. One thing I want to hit with cell phone, I know I mentioned this earlier, but I want to mention it again, is this: you want to continually send the message, this is my phone I am letting you use. My phone letting you use, because sadly so often kids start to have this entitlement that, like, hey, it's my phone, I should be able to do what I want, and that really gives this don't take it, it's mine, and creates all this kind of battle, right? And one thing that's really nice to kind of send that message over and over at the beginning is having your kids turn your phone into a public place or something at night. Really sends that message that this is my phone that you are using. On page 95, when it talks about sexting, it talks about in the later point that, like, an adolescent's intrinsic feeling of invincibility make learning from other people's bad decisions difficult. We see so many, like, people's bad decisions of sexting and sending nude pictures being used against them, but kids don't think that's ever going to happen to them. And so when they see that, they're just like, whatever. And we as parents can point it out to them over and over and over, but in their phase of invincibility, it's really hard for them to learn from consequences that happen to someone else. It's important that we help them to see the risks for themselves, right? And then stress values. Like, values will make more of a difference, and trying to help a kid to feel self-confident on their own without needing the external validation that they're attractive. Because a lot of times that's why these things start, is this external validation of what's attractive. The final section of this chapter is called Encouraging Positive Media Influences. The first focus is just to participate in your child's culture. Try to participate in their social media, in their YouTube favorites, in the shows they watch, in the books they read, in the music they listen to. Be aware of what's going on in their world and talk to them about it and laugh with them, and let it be something that you share together. You want to give them space to develop their own freedoms, especially with their technology and the things that they are interested in, and it will give you a good reflection of where they are at. Individuals seek this feeling of belonging, and so they will seek that in their media, and they will look for media that fits them. And so their media will usually be an exaggeration, but a reflection of their view of self. She also talks about sharing your media, sharing books that you loved at that age, sharing movies that you loved at that age, and let it be something where they can see your interests and help to see you as a person and previously a teen or a child, so they can connect with you on that level instead of just always seeing you as a parent. I think this is especially powerful with books and encouraging your child to be a reader, because that really helps them to be imaginative while they read instead of just watching someone else's imagination. The talking about that is going to bring so much power and connection to your relationships. The media has such an expansive influence on our child's view of normal, especially as more and more of their interactions start to go through screens. Their idea of normal is going to be what they see on media. And so tracking what our child's influences are will really give us a good mental idea of what they think is normal, and then what they think is normal is naturally what they're subconsciously chasing. And so it's important that we participate in their media and learn what media they are choosing. It's also important that we help our child to see that they can control their media. And they can do that by controlling their internet cookies, by telling the internet things that they're interested in and things that they're not interested in. And as a parent, then you can check on like, okay, what is this individual's cookies telling me about them and their likes and their dislikes and what they believe is normal. Media is scary, but it is a phenomenal place to teach. Phenomenal, because it's not going to hurt anyone's feelings, right? Like I like to talk about like in The Office, right? Like you can talk about how Pam is flirting with Jim even though she's engaged to Roy, right? And like you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings there. They're made up characters, but you can talk about very specific things that are going on and help them to understand whether or not you believe they're real or fake. Media is a very safe place to do that because again, it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. My advice to you as a parent is to be involved. Be engaged in your child's media and understand that there are going to be mistakes made, and allow room for mistakes that are self-reported. The biggest danger with media is when media becomes hidden. When media goes hidden, it becomes unchecked by not only your values as a parent, but also the values of your own child. When they start hiding things, things are allowed to exist outside of their value system. Stay engaged, and you will help your child to gain media skills that will help enable their future success. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Please share. This really helps us to succeed as a community as you share information like this. And if you ever feel like you could use some individual help, please set up a free consultation. You can visit us at our website at trueconnectionsrecovery.com and set up a free consultation there. Thank you.